All right. Stand now. Right. And what grade are you in school, Tom? I'm junior. Junior. Cool. So, whenever you're ready, sir. So when you listen to this piece, when you're about to play it, what would be a word that would describe the very beginning of this? So, because the piece is short, but it's in three, or in a few different sections. Each one has sort of a different mood. What would be a word? It can be a musical word or a totally non-musical word.
This is very close. Exciting.
Exciting. Okay.
Just on the maybe more upbeat.
Sure. So the first two lines, then, you're saying it should be quiet but exciting. Okay. So what's something you can do in the first line that communicates a sense of excitement, but almost paradoxically, it's quiet. A quiet excitement.
I think I'll bring out like the chords, like bring those out.
Good.
Especially when it goes
So where would the melody be? The melody would be in which hand? Right. Very good. So jump in here real quick. So at the beginning. Yeah, try that for me. Nice. I like that decrescendo you're doing in the very last bar. What's something that you can do to make that phrase seem a little bit longer? You have the decrescendo. What's something we can do in the bar before to make that longer? Yeah, so in the right hand, on the third bar, we've had the first two bars that kind of set us up, right? Now the third bar's come. We need to do something. We need to go somewhere. So can you try that line again and make the third measure crescendo and then come down on that fourth bar? Good. Now, when we go to the next line, we have the crescendo marked. What do you think we should do in terms of phrasing there? Are there any crescendos you want to add, or you just want to take it at face value? Now that we've already done the crescendo in the first line.
like crescendo, maybe like the first two bars and then decrescendo in the third one.
Okay. I've never thought of that, but let's try that. Cool. So for the crescendo in the first two bars, I like your idea there. Let's temper it though a little bit so it doesn't come above meaning that's okay. Because you don't want it to steal the show from that last bar. Because that last bar, it breaks from the pattern. It leads us into another section, which is again louder. So let the first two bars have their fun, but don't spoil it for that fourth bar. I'm going to try it one more time, make sure we're playing all the beats and bars. you're keeping the third bar light enough where you can crescendo that fourth bar without it screaming at the very end. Because again, it's only going into mezzo forte. The forte doesn't come until the fourth line, right? Now, in the first section here, talking about technique, I like your control very well. I can tell you've been taught the Stevens technique very, very well. You have a nice sort of piston motion and control of that. Since this is almost, you're saying exciting, it's an exciting piece. I also feel it's kind of mysterious sounding. It's got sort of a murkiness to it, right? So I want something that's going to be fluid sounding. Going back to what I said before, feel equals sound. I want it to sound different. I want it to need my hands. It needs to feel different. So in Alabama during the summer, does it get really humid here? Okay. I'm over in Mississippi, which isn't too far. So that's kind of a loaded question there. Think about, if you were to think about like a plant during the summer in the humidity. Very just heavy, relaxed. Transfer that to mallet technique. Mallet's almost going to fall out of my hands, right? So if I was just playing this in normal, like I have my piston strokes, switching to almost a dropping, a heaviness. Right? So try that for me. Actually, try it the first way. Try it the way you've normally been doing it, like piston stroke, the whole thing like that. 1, 2, ready, go. Good. Now try the same thing, but now with the mallets drop, almost like they could fall out of your hands. Also imagine the sound coming out of the resonator and pushing your mallet up. That's how relaxed this needs to be. The sound is actually coming out of the instrument like puffs of air pushing your hand up. Try the first 2 lines and try to imagine that level of looseness, relaxation. Something else you'll notice when you're playing, doesn't really matter which grip you're using, if I switched over to Stevens for a second. Notice when I come off the bar, if my hands are relaxed, unless I'm using a piston motion, there's going to be a little bit of a droop there. Almost like the mallets are hanging off my fingers. Try the opening again, a little bit slower. See on the upstroke, if you can just watch your hand naturally want to hang because of how loose it is. 1, 2, ready, go. Those second notes in your right hand sound way different now, man. Bum, it resonates, and part of it is that the mallet, you're not constricting the mallet as much. I think also because this is loose, you're using a little more weight from your arm. All of a sudden, you have some different tools in your toolbox now. You just don't have the piston stroke technique, which is great. I think that's certainly one tool to use. But as you're thinking about sound and motion and just how you want to physically feel what's in that piece, having some different options of letting the hands go a little bit more limp, I think is good. Good. I thought you controlled the third line very, very well. When we get to the fourth line, there's something I marked in there sort of on purpose. I like to see how students think about it and what they do with it. It says forte, which you certainly play it, but one hand is important and one hand is not. Which hand is more important than the third? The left hand, exactly. It's the melody, The right hand is the accompaniment. But however, it's an unfair fight because the right hand has 2 notes. And it's the less important part. And it's marked forte. So what I would do here is disregard what I say on the page and make your own decision about that. In that, okay, he's saying forte, but which sounds more appropriate? Right? That's me going, well, that's what he wrote. That's what I'm going to play. What if that way this gets out of the way, and also forte just applies to the peak of that phrase. Bum, 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 bum. I clear away a lot more room for my left hand to be able to play there. So try that. So try a forte piano at the very beginning, and then just as wide as you can play, and then let that left hand come in there. Good. That's better. Even better. Try. There you go. Yeah, nice. And be careful. Make sure that you're coming out on the second 8th note of the second beat. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. Yeah. Try. There you go. Good. Yeah. And that's a spot where you can go back to that more of a piston stroke because you need those notes to really punch out, right? So this is very light, just dropping. You could even come up on the edges a little bit. Like that. So now, yes, I have forte, but forte just applies to the biggest parts of that phrase. Right? So can you try the same thing? 1, 2, there you go. Yeah, and I like that you crescendoed your right hand here at the very end. So that way it sets up the right hand's going to be doing there. All right? And again, just be careful going in that second bar. Make sure. Yeah. Yeah, so make sure 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. Yeah. Good. Now here on the next line. Right. So, first thing, making sure when you change notes that you're moving laterally, meaning that you're not playing it and then picking it back up and then moving it like that. Think about like as if you were skipping a rock on a pond. So just like I'm playing flams on a snare drum, one hand goes down, the other comes up. So it sets me up for what's next. Here, as soon as I hit the note, I'm going to skip to where I need to be on that next one. Can you try just your right hand there? Bum, bum, bum. Yep, there you go. Yep, there you go. Yeah, nice. And again, you don't have to play terribly high here. Again, we see forte, we see double stops, and we think high and powerful and all that. Again, I'm giving you 2 notes in each hand. So you're already getting twice as much value. You're getting twice as much sound. So that means you can play half as high as a normal forte stroke and get the same amount of sound. Right? Good. So, let's see. And I see that you got my hidden sticking here.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that.
Yes, okay. So what we're talking about here is the third line from the bottom. Have a sharp diminished. Now we have a choice here. We have a G fully diminished chord, which if you just looked at it the same way, I'd have to like break my collarbone or something so I could do this. Or, to check it out, there's a ritardando right before. That's a clue. If I'm giving you time to do something, what is it? It's this. My right hand goes up and plays the B flat and D flat. Left hand is playing the G and the F flat. Like that. Alright? So try that for me. Just zump, bum, 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 bum. And take as much time. Use that ritardando to your advantage, not only musically, but to get to where you need to be.
I've been doing that.
That's fine too. Yes. No, that's good. Good. Now, can you make, that's very nice as far as the timing. Can you make it dynamically a little bit smoother? So that way, the last couple of beats of the F sharp lead right up to the front door of that G. Right? So. Try that. You can take a little more time at the very end. For my taste, I might be a little more dramatic with the ritardando. Jump, bum, 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 zump, bum, 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 bum. If you think how a conductor might conduct that, he or she might subdivide that last bar. Jump, bum, 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 bum. Notice you're not in any kind of hurry, and it's slowed down to kind of this silent picture, I don't know how to describe it, but yeah, it's almost like in a horror movie type thing. And that way you get enough sound, right? So you're going to use the ritardando to logistically get where you need to be, but also do it in a way you're not having to compromise your stroke height. Because if it's too fast, you can't get up that high. Here's something where you really want to hit that and get a nice big sound. So, good.
I have a question about for this line. There's no on-tempo until the third bar. Is that still?
Yeah.
That's still at that speed, right?
Oh, I would take this out of time a bit. Here, and again, this is another one of those moments. I think I wrote this intentionally a little bit vague. There's times in music where I'll write something that's very specific. And there's other times that I will not make it specific. One, because I want to, or there's different ways to think about it, but also in an audition piece, I want to see what you do with that. I think in order to be competitive in the audition, I think you certainly want to have a command over what's on the page. The upper final tier of players, I think, that really sell the piece, it's how they navigate the absence of that. And do they just kind of go through it because there's no instructions there, they don't change anything? Or is there a musical intuition to where they've thought about it and tried it a few different ways? So, to answer that, let me see how I would do it. So. Give you an idea, maybe.
Yes, that's what I was just wondering. Because I just like it because the rap part always makes it a lot.
Yes.
And so I just did that.
Yeah, I think that should be a little out of time. It shouldn't be completely free. It's obviously there are note values attached to it, which implies you have to have certain things happen at a certain time. We have a ritardando in the second bar, which doesn't imply there's some kind of regular tempo before that. Bum, 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 bum. Yeah, so maybe a little bit slower. So to give you a black and white answer, maybe just a little bit under tempo from where that was. Cool. Would you want to try that from the 12/8? Jump, bum, 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 bum. That's it right there. And again, the last beat before the up tempo, jump, bum, bum. If you can envision the conductor going into 3 there. Just like we talked about coming out of the F sharp diminished. Jump, 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 bum, bum. And in fact, as I'm playing that, I'm imagining like an imaginary hand or conductor sort of doing that. So it is out of tempo, but it has continuity to it. We all can follow it. Yeah, nice. Yeah, that was great. Anything else?
I noticed on the speaking when it was, I think here, you were switching a lot of those, you were playing with the outside on. Like what's the...
So this,
yeah.
Again, if you want to go, sure, but I would be, all I have to do to get that is keep my left hand in a perfect 4th. So. Like that. And that way, when my right hand has to come back, my left hand comes back again on that E, it's already right there. That, exactly. I can play that whole line right there set at a 4th. It's just been there the entire time. It goes boom. And then when I have to come back in, I don't have to come back. I don't have to move anything. And even on the instrument I'm used to playing on, that's going to be a little bit less work. Also, I'm not having to move around, and I want that to be a very smooth line. So the less kinetic energy I put into moving back and forth, the more relaxed that's going to sound. On top of the fact in the audition, you're probably playing on an instrument you've never played on before. I'm going to try to keep all my cards as close to me as possible in terms of not having to add additional movements and things like that.
And do you think like on that when it's the live outside, it should be as flowy because you don't want your outside mount going all over the place?
Yeah, I think it depends upon the player. For me, I play Burton, so I have a pretty good grip on that. And Stevens, no. I think I'm playing a little more with a rotation there, simply because that's what's required of me. I think if I did that arm type of stuff I was telling you to do in the beginning, it's going to be hard.
That's what when I was playing around with that, I felt like just more reliance on this and just keeps everything.
And I think the Stevens technique is great for when you need those isolated notes like that, and you can play it as legato as you want. I mean, just because you're rotating doesn't mean that it has to go. Right? If you just think about those fingers, again, going back to the analogy of the humidity, just letting the fingers relax, you'll find you'll be able to get all the rotation you want and do it with any kind of sound quality or any kind of articulation you might want as well. So, yeah.
And on the last line, when it's I saw you played the intervals audition side. Is that also
I do that. I don't know. I probably feel a little bit more safe about that. So where he's asking is the very last, the first bar of the last line. Okay. So I'm playing those with my inside mallets as opposed to. I think it's a matter of deciding which you feel more comfortable with. So if I play the inside mallet, I do have to jump from my E up to my A. If since I'm changing between the upper and lower manuals, and it is a little slower, I feel like I'm not going to take a chance on my accuracy in my right hand. Yeah, and I would, just like how I used the ritardando in the second to last line, I'm going to use that to my advantage a little bit. So, see how I took that little space right there? And people go, oh, it's so pretty. No? Yeah, I certainly hope it's pretty, but the reason is I just need a little nanosecond to get myself set. Yeah, but that's, I think the way you played it with one hand is fine. I think that's just...
I played around with it about it, and
I would, try it a few different ways and then play it in front of people, and if there's one where you feel more comfortable, that's it right there. Yeah, I certainly think they both work. And when I wrote this, I kind of thought like, yeah, I could see kids doing that too. And I'm not going to go and say like, this is the sticking I'm most used to, because again, I want to see what you've thought about, and the biggest test is, does it feel comfortable? Because if it feels comfortable, you're going to be more accurate. If it feels comfortable, you're going to be more apt to play interpretively and expressively because you're not worrying about getting the notes. And if you feel more comfortable, the overall presentation is going to be more confident as well. So, thank you for playing. Yeah, you're right.
Okay, why don't we take like a short 5-minute, which is registration.
How is the height for you? Is that okay?
That's good.
Whenever you are ready. Okay, good. Well, I think the fact that it's repetitive, I think it lends itself to something that's very listenable, very catchy, right? And this is another one of those pieces that was not originally composed for the marimba. It was written for piano, I think. It was written in the 1800s. And so the melody is from the piano right hand, and there's an accompaniment that goes in the left hand. And you'll hear all kinds of arrangements of this melody for different instruments and whatnot. I think the fact that it has this repetitive, catchy kind of sound really gives us some nice opportunities when it comes to making this art. I think your control of the notes, your confidence with the accuracy, I think is very good. All right. So how can we make this our own? So I think the first thing is to talk about all the notes not having the same importance. Okay? So if I could only choose one note out of each bar, say if I was given an eraser, and I do erase every single note from each measure, at least we'll talk about the very first section at least. What's the most important note? The first note, right? Because it's sort of what determines what happens in each bar. It starts high, then it goes low, 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 and oh, it comes back again, right? And in fact, if you look at the original score for this piece, when it was on piano, there's something that the arranger here did not put in. There's actually a tie over the last 5 notes. Da, 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 da. So if I was playing this on piano, my pedal would be down. Da, 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 da. Or if I was playing this, say, on a clarinet, I would have all of that be slurred. Da, 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 da. What's something we can do in our playing, even though we can't really do that on this instrument, what's something we can do to make that difference Change the stroke style, exactly, very good. So what kind of stroke would I want on those important notes, on those downbeats? Staccato stroke. I think you were listening from before when I was talking about this. Good. And then on the other notes, the slurred notes, that just kind of help to support the arrival on the next note. How are we going to play those? As a legato, what is the difference? How should my hands feel different between a staccato motion and a legato motion? Exactly, exactly. So can you play, kind of what I was doing with the student before, can you play that rhythm, but just play it on a G form? Da-da-dum, da-da-da-da-da-dum, da-da-da-da-da-dum. Yeah, now you're playing the 5 notes legato and softer. Can you put a little bit of a crescendo into the last note? Like that. Da, 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 da. Good. And then match the articulation on the second downbeat with the first one. Da, 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 da. Make more of a crescendo, so we get. Good, and a little more arrival on bar 2. There you go. Good, by yourself. There you go. Yes, nice. Now add the pitches. In fact, if you want, you can try from the very top. Bum, 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 bum. And then try to go through the first 4 bars. Nice. Now, does that sound different to you now? Does have a little more character to it? Good. Now that we've worked out the phrasing in each bar, right? So we know the important thing is the downbeat, and then the other characters are kind of supporting cast, right? Let's think about the bigger picture. In the first 4 bars, as I've mentioned a bunch of times today, we have 3 options, right? Play it all even. We could decrescendo those 4 bars, or we could make it louder. And there's no right answer. I've tried it a bunch of different ways, and each one I think sounds good in its own way. Which one would you prefer? Okay, so you're going to start a little softer, and your goal is going to be the C sharp. Let's try that. Good, and try it one more time. Can you give me a little more crescendo in the earlier part of the phrase? I feel like you're getting louder towards the end. Can you make that a little more even? Good, and the reason I like that is because you're leading up to the chromatic note, right? The note that doesn't really fit in the key, you're emphasizing that. So you're kind of taking a step back in the phrase, and you know you're leading to that C sharp, starting off a little bit softer. Nice. Let me see. And so, when we have the next part of that, do we do the same thing, or do we do something different? Starting in bar, what is that, bar 5? Okay. Let's try from the very top and try that so we can hear that in context. Cool. Another thing to think about as we think about how this whole section at the beginning works is, what if we played the first, say, 2 lines or so, using the phrasing that we talked about, but starting it much softer. That way, when it comes back again at bar 10, we can have the whole thing come up a touch. So for example, we have now a little louder. Like that, but I think I did what you were talking about in bar 5. When we go to the F, we're going to bring it down. So try that from the top, and maybe try starting it even like a piano minus E. Louder. Good. Now, when we get these double stops at the end of the second line, bum, 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 can we make those crescendo and arrive on the roll and come back down? So I'm thinking, try that. And I think I'm playing my roll a little bit shorter. Could that be softer too? So that way we we end from a place that's softer, that's going to buy you a little bit more room when we start that next. Good. Yeah, nice. So, and then the second time around when we get those double stops, I hear, going into bar 17, that's our arrival on beat 2. Jump, bum, 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 bum. So could we make those double stops crescendo, and then those 16th notes crescendo, so we end up that downbeat big. So it contrasts the first time, because there's still more to go. The second time around, yeah. So the first arrival is soft, and then the second arrival is big. So where to start from? Let's start from the beginning. That's it though, yeah. And again, if we were to slow it down and take it back to the practice room where you can get comfortable with it, I think that's going to sell for you, because what you're doing is you're addressing phrasing on multiple different levels. You have the phrasing within each bar, phrasing within the phrase, and then phrasing within the section. The section is made up of phrases, phrases are made up of bars, right? So we have the weight on each downbeat, that's within each bar. What's going on within each phrase, where it's going to crescendo, that's that level. And then the phrasing for the section is, okay, the first time it's only going to get so loud and then it's going to come back down. Second time around it builds and then arrives after those 16th notes. That's the phrasing within the section, right? So, and again, too, if you could spend some time exploring that, I think that's going to help you out. Cool? All right. And then, when we get to the 16th notes, which I thought you played very well. What type of phrasing do you think we should use when we have those smoosh decrescendo, how do we add some personality to it?
Well, when it gets to the apex, you should know that.
Mm-hmm.
And then once it gets apex and it rolls, and then it starts off again.
Yes. So in order to do that, I like your idea. Like getting you to that point, I think you need to be soft by the time we get to those eighths together. So I think starting with a nice full forte sound on those 16ths, but then adding something called line phrasing. I don't know if you've ever heard of this before, line phrasing or line dynamics. Okay. What line phrasing or what line dynamics means is that if something descends, goes down the keyboard, we're going to decrescendo. If it goes up the keyboard, we're going to crescendo. And that's not the way you always want to play, but if you're looking for ideas on ways to kind of make it sound a little more interesting, that's a good place to start. So can we try from here with that pickup? And we'll slow it down a little bit, but start nice and big, but then decrescendo as you move down the line. So when you get to those eighth notes, you're able to do that crescendo. Probably take a little bit less on the, I like the fact that there's a crescendo there, but you're coming to here, you only come to there, so it's a little more subtle. Let's try the same passage a little bit slower. Da, 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 da. Good. Now, but just because you're doing that, don't shy away from the beginning of that being big. So. So see, I'm not really getting soft until about here, so. Wow. Then get soft. Like that. And notice how I'm bringing out my left hands there as too, so I get a nice even articulation, all right? Yeah, yes, good. All right, now can you do the same thing when we start off the C? Right, so same thing, maybe wait until like the second or third beat or something to get soft. And so what kind of key does that go to there? Does it stay in a major key, or where you just ended? Is that major or minor? Minor, right? So it's a little sadder, a little more dreary. So we're going to be a little softer there. Good. Can you start from the beginning of that phrase on that high E? Bum, 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 bum. And then I like how you save the decrescendo for the very end. I like how also, when you go to the minor, you don't do the same phrasing you did before. I would just keep that. Yeah. Watch the timing. Right. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. Make sure that coming out of the roll, we don't lose time. Okay? Same thing. One, two. Soft. Yeah, that's great. That's great right there. Cool. And then, can you go, now that we're in minor, start from where we just left off, the end of bar 25. And try to keep, now since we've done this really nice phrasing, these crescendos and stuff, do the opposite here. Try to keep this all pretty subtle. same thing again, a little bit slower. Yeah, okay. If there's going to be a crescendo in here, where do you think there might be? Yes, but you've already done that. I think you've already kind of done that trick once or twice, so here's another idea. Like that. So I would wait for that. So again, they're expecting you to play the crescendo when it ascends, like you've been doing, but you're not going to do it this time. You're going to wait until the sequence that comes after it. Okay? Crescendo, crescendo. Okay, so try this one. Just that. Yep, so your arrival is going to be on a G. So you're playing this off your left hand? Or your right? Okay, so if it's on your right, there we go. Good. Now, so notice I'm getting softer, and just to add a little bit of drama there. Can you go from the same place, beginning of that last line, starting on the G with your right hand, crescendo, arrive, decrescendo, and then stretch out the very end. Okay? So I'm thinking here, what you want to do is stay in time, then get slower. So. Retard this. So I'm thinking, make sure you're playing enough notes too. So 1 and a 2 and a 1 and a 2 and a 1. Drama to it. I think a little more openness to the very end. Still not hearing you slow down. I want to hear you slow down. Can you make it even more dramatic? Better. Make sure you're playing all of the counts that are not maybe off of a beat. Good one again. Ready, go. 1 and a 2 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and there's 2 notes in the beginning. Ready, go. using the phrasing, and once you've done something a couple times, the third time it comes around, that's when you want to throw them a curveball. All right, so just like the first 2 times around, we did pretty much the same things with the 16th notes coming up and going down. Third time around, we're going to not do that and then change that. And then in the beginning, with beginning soft, following the phrasing like you mentioned, and then the second time around doing the same thing but a little bit bigger. Cool? Any questions at all? No, you're good? All right, thank you. Whenever you're ready. So getting through the sticking of that rhythm, and then the gliss, and then the jimmy change. Okay, so in those three different things. So what sticking are you using in that first bar? Can you take me through that? Good. So can we try that down tempo? Ready, go. When you get to the 16th notes, do you feel like, at least in this tempo, are you rushing or dragging? I thought you were rushing and kind of good. So if you can dig into those notes a little bit more and separate them a little bit more. Okay? Good. Ready, go. Dynamic printing. What do you think we should do? We have 3 choices. We can play it as is, we can decrescendo it, or we can crescendo it. Which do you think we should do? Yeah, because we're landing on that E flat, which sets us up for that very last note. Alright? So now, this might have to go a little bit with the sticking as well. Can you play the same thing, we'll keep it at the same slow tempo, start it softer, and then crescendo. So that way, the volume you were just playing the whole thing, make that your ending factor. 5, 2, ready, go. Good. And then that way, you really can bring out that E flat at the end, and it's not going to be overshadowed by it. You can get super epic. Can we try it a little bit quicker? Is the left hand. Can you make the left hand more of an active participant in that crescendo? Exactly. For me, that's the sustain between the notes. Like if we took out the 16th notes and just made like a crescendoing single note, the left hand for me fills in those gaps and it sounds like it's one line. Can we go now from And if we can be sort of creative with the dynamics he has printed, maybe arriving on that downbeat at the forte that's printed, but then he has this metered accelerometer, right? The quarter note triplet, 8 notes, etc. Drop that down, so that way we add to the excitement of what's already on the page rhythmically. Also, at the same time, keeping it so your strokes are pretty low so you're able to get around the drums. Cool? So let's try from the last bar on the second to last line. 2, ready, go. Now, can you start with an accent though? Bum, bum, bum. So start at the forte dynamic and then drop down on the B flats. 2, ready, go. Does that seem more comfortable now? I think it's more comfortable. Because it's more comfortable, it's more convincing sounding. Also, you're able to arrive on that E flat there. So I would say that. Go for the E flat at the beginning, drop down. It's only going to add to the excitement of what he's got there. That way, things are getting tied up with your hands, and you can arrive on that high E flat. To be a little more nitpicky, when we get to the next bar, bar 33, can you dampen out the B flat and the E flat on beat 3? 1, 2, 3 to get going. Cool. So try from bar 33, and I guess try just 33 and 34. 1, 2, ready, go. Good. Now, try it one more time. Make sure we get all the way up to that E flat.
How do I, if like I'm dancing it on 3, how do I get all the way down though? Like,
So what I would do there, I know what you're doing. I do something different. I would play the B flat here. So that way, no matter what happens in that blitz, because it goes by so fast, it's this freaky fast thing. I know my E flat's good. So. Yeah. And even, it might be a little ambitious here to expect D out of this drum, but it goes by so fast. The rhythm and the integrity of it is more important than, I doubt anybody's going to go, well, didn't really get to a D on the last note of that blitz. No. I think, like that. Try that. Good. Try same thing a little bit slower. 1, ready, go. Off. Yeah. That's it. As long as we hear the B flat and we hear the E flat, and something that sounds bliss-like happens between the two, I think we're good. All right. Now, you're doing something a lot of my students do when they come in, which is the sweep. I'm going to de-sweep you right now. Instead of so if you can dampen your back 3 fingers right where you just played. So the problem with the sweep, and I don't mean to offend any sweepers out there, is that one, it's a different sound. It's like we're turning down a fader or something really fast. Like that. Also, if that's your habit, your go-to, when you need to dampen really fast, you can't break that habit. It's like you're a DJ back there on the turntable or something like that. So, 1, 2. So, and if there's a little contact noise, that's fine. Off. So notice how I'm keeping my fulcrum intact, using my back 3 for right. That's better. You still, the sweep is, yeah, I think good. Yes. Now, in your left hand, make argue, well, it doesn't affect anything. But if that's your default habit, and you have to dampen fast, you have that going back and forth with your thumb, that's going to be really hard. So again, keep the fulcrum intact, and then just use your back fingers there. Right? Yeah, that sounds a lot cleaner now. Try again. 1, ready, go. 2, 3. Yeah, that's it. And then, what did she give you? There's no rest in the last bar. And then as soon as I hit that, I'm going to practice this, so as soon as I hit, right, so I'm going to move, and then I'm going to get my E flat here. So. Yeah, good. So let's tune this back up.
And you're going to be the same.
Yeah. And to be absolutely literal of what's on the page, I'm going to dampen on the second quarter now. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and. So it's not super short. Yeah. Send it again.
And are you, like, when you're doing that, are you dampening this drum or forward, or you're just letting it
I
go?
might be dampening them both at the same time. I'm dampening this as I hit that.
Okay.
So it's like I'm playing both. Another benefit of not sweeping, because I was doing this. It's kind of hard. So like I'm playing, but I'm playing with my hand here. Try that. So bring that back up to a G. Try just that last note. Oh. Good. And try to dampen right when you just played. So a little bit further out. Yep. A little lower. Good. Now try the last 2 bars. And we'll do it slow. Okay. Bum, 2, 3, bum. 3. That's it. Yes. Good. And then as you're practicing this, try to break that habit of going like that. And again, I'm throwing a bunch of things at you right now. So, good. Try it one more time. If we go from the third to last bar with the rest, then the dampening with the fingers, and then the gliss coming from that drum, and then dampening out the 26 while you play 32, and then dampening on the 1. Okay? That was right. You have more time in the second to last bar than what you think. 1, 2, 3, take it going. Yeah. 2, 3. 2, 3. Yep. Try again. 1, 2, ready, go. 3, 2, 3. That's the idea. Now just make that a little bit louder. Actually, make that a lot louder. Close. Very close. Very close. One more time. Yeah, good. And again, I mean, these are concepts I'm kind of throwing at you right now, but when you go into the practice room, you can really go through each one and refine it. So, nice. Any other questions?
I have a question. This bar, it's like, I'm starting to get better at it, but it's just like a weird rhythm, like I was, like you're going to tell the drag to the,
Oh, that one right there?
the one, the one hand.
Okay, so here, with a lot of these grace notes, let me please jump in here real quick. He's asking about the placement of the grace notes in the third line from the bottom, third bar. So, I'm a big fan not only with my students, but in my own playing a lot, of metering where I put my grace notes. Like that. So, a 1, a 2, a 3. So notice a 1, a 2, a 3. So my right hand, that's the outline for it.
Do you do the one hand on B3 or you play with that hand when you're looking?
Yeah.
That's what I was wondering about. It was better to do the double right.
No, because my right hand has to travel up to get to that B flat. 1,
And then did you go with the 2 hands better?
exactly. I don't like to double unless I have to, but this is one of those things where the collateral damage that might be caused by doing some kind of, yeah. Try that. Put it on, to get on, to get on. Try again. 1, 2, ready, go. Good, and I alternate that once I get, yeah, right. Yeah.
Oh, seriously.
Or, yeah, so.
That's seriously.
So that way my opposite hand is free for a nice eyeball and B flat.
I guess it's.
Yep, that's it, yeah. I think for me, playing timpani, a large part of it is finding out the right sticking. Because all the other things that we talk about, pitch and roll speed, interpretation, shading, color, all that, if you can't get to the thing you need to get to do the thing you need to do, the rest of that stuff doesn't matter all that much. So if you think about, even with your copy, is this your copy, right?
Just,
Okay. Yeah, I would go in and mark in the sticking there.
would, do you agree with the sticking in 14 or
Hmm.
like having a plan for it?
The way I do that, I do the same thing, except, this is going to sound really odd, but I play 4 lefts there. And I just try to push them out fast. If I have any kind of right going on here, yeah, I don't know, yeah, you could, but no, my right hand has to get down like that.
Yeah, it feels awkward.
I think that works. It's not ideal, and hopefully the timpani police don't come take me off to timpani jail for it, but, yeah, I do all 4 there, just because it's soft too, right? Yeah, so you don't have to play terribly high, you can just kind of punch it out. Try that. Run, down, run, down, run, 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 run. Yeah, try it one more time and just try to be a little bit quicker on that second note on the bottom. Because the important thing is not losing time and getting to that goal on time. So I think as long as you're, and it's soft enough, you can kind of bounce those. Yeah. Good. Exactly. Nice, and I like your sound a lot. I mean, you definitely have a timpanist sound. You don't sound like a snare drummer playing 4 tom-tom drums.
Yeah, I've been saying this whole thing, the all around.
It does, yeah, it does. I think it's, as I was learning it, it's definitely some techniques in there that I had
Yeah.
played a lot. Yeah. And so the question is, and I think you're answering this question well with your playing, is yes, it has has sort of these marching tenor gymnastics to it at times, but how you keep in mind the fact that you're not playing on marching tenors, you know, that you're playing on timpani that have a thinner head, that they have to resonate more. It's a different thing, an entirely different instrument entirely. So how do you keep the rhythmic integrity and keep all of the energy that you're getting that maybe is inspired, you know, he's been inspired by to compose this piece, but how do you translate it stylistically to the instrument? Yeah. Sure. I think it goes back to what I was saying before when I was talking about middle school piece, is that whatever you put in, as long as you take it back out. Like you could play with an awful lot of weight, you know. You know, I'm playing with the back of my hand there. But as long as I come back, I don't really get into the territory of a bad sound. Or I can come down here. And I've seen people get bad sounds too just because they're low, you know, but I mean, the stroke came from somewhere, so it has to go back to somewhere. So as long as you do that, and I think that's a good general approach for any instrument as well, like if you're trying to avoid bad sounds, take it back to where it came from, you know, and I think that's a good starting spot. So, yeah, nice, very nice. So the challenge for us then is, how do we get some things out of the snare drum that maybe aren't always things that we can see at face value, right? In particular, how do we create longer phrases? More dynamics, yes. So in particular, if I'm looking at that first phrase that you play, the flams want to have a little bit of natural weight to them. What's something you can do after the first note that can help us have a sense of longer phrase? Good, good. So I think the first note, because it's a marcato accent and it's a drag, I would play that a little closer to the center, at least for that initial note, but then almost make it like a fortissimo, and then the next note maybe at mezzo forte. So these rhythmic sequences that Peters has going over the bar line, they have a little bit of momentum dynamically coming up. So try that for me. So try that first note, like it's going to come out of nowhere, like you're ready to audition, they tell you it's time to go, and you just smack them in the face with it. But then you're going to show them how it's going to build. Good, and I like what you did at the very end, matching your last dynamic to your first one. So those dynamics, those accents act like bookends on that phrase. Now, going back to something I was talking to one of the middle school students about is your motion before that first note. So notice I'm lifting and breathing. I think on down like this. Breathe and lift. Good, and I would go more for the center on that. Not so much for the grayscale, but for the Good. Now, does your breath match the sound you want? Because I'm hearing this. And the first note is, pop. Put all the DNA of what you want in that first note into that breath. So I know the style, I know the tempo, I know the dynamic. Yeah, and you play differently. Good. Now try the same thing. I can take a little less in that second bar. Maybe more mezzo, less forte. Yeah. And I think the crescendo should start chop, 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 where the rhythm gets a little more active. He has these sequences that go over the bar line. That's where you want your crescendo to start Good. And I like that you went back to the center there too. So not only dynamically do we match the front and the end, but tone quality wise too. Good. And then for this four-stroke rough, are you playing that as a single? Second to come? Good. So you're doing right, left, left, right. So I would probably, if I had to think about rhythmically where I wanted to place that, because that's a lot going on. I'm shifting dynamics, I'm shifting into this four-stroke rough. I'm going to put that on the up. So try that. Good. And a good way to practice that, take out your lefts. Try that. Good. Now, he says mezzo piano. You don't really get a softer dynamic until later on, until the pianissimo. You might want, because again, you're probably going to do the same kind of phrasing in this next phrase. Buy yourself a little more space on the lower end by making that more piano and less mezzo piano. Good. Now try it with the four-stroke rough. Good again. That's it. Yeah, nice. That's the hardest part of this, and if you can get that, I think we're in good shape. So let's take what we just did from the beginning and take it through maybe up to the beginning of that second page and just follow the same course of action there. So we start the phrase big and then it drops down, comes up, and keeps on building and growing. Fortissimo, I could almost see it like, oh, it's a fortissimo, and I'm already maxed out, right? So can you keep the energy a little more contained when we get to the forte? Okay? That was great at the very, very beginning, the breath and the style and all of that. Go from the forte one. Good. Can you come down with the stick heights a little bit? Because I think the energy you're putting into the drum is giving you enough sound. I think you could maybe shave a little bit off just by bringing your stick heights down a touch. Yeah. Now, what's something you can do to make sure that you don't max yourself out before the fortissimo? What can you save for the fortissimo? The heights, what's one other thing? Now, the center. Yeah, again, there's a roll shortly thereafter, but we'll talk about that soon. I would save the center for the fortissimo. So I'll know that, okay, even if I get a little excited, I get a little amped up, I know I'm not going to be too loud because I'm going to save the center for the fortissimo. So. Right? So, hopefully by tempering the stick height, you're not going to run into that problem. But a good fail-safe is, okay, for that first bar of the fortissimo, I'm going to go to the center. Okay? When we get to the fortissimo, I think to give this a little more direction, try dropping down and crescendoing that roll. Again, using the center as a bookend. 1, 2, and 1. Like that. I'm playing taps. Again, because at this tempo, I could, but for me, it's by distributing it between the two hands, I think it works better. I don't think that's a definitive thing, though. I think if you do it a different way, as long as you have that clarity to it, I think it's fine. On the roll, or actually, let's go from right here. Jump bumps, bump, 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 zone. Good. Now on the roll, can you go up to the very, very edge for me so we get this really dramatic Broadway Hollywood kind of sound? Now, what sticking are you using on the roll? You could, or you could use. I'm actually using I think a 7-note hand motion. So that way I don't have to crunch my rolls down so much. And also I'm starting on my left and resolving on my right. Starting on a weak, resolving on a strong. So, am I counting all 7 notes? No. I'm just starting on my right and my left. Yeah. So try that. Start on your left with the roll and end on your right. 2, 3, go. Yeah, and give me a little more release on the roll. So go into the very center. Ready, go. For me, that fills up the sound enough, but if I go to I go to 9 notes, in order to get those to work, the buzzes have to be more compressed, which for me doesn't, I don't feel as comfortable with that sound. So the 7 for me, it takes a little bit of practice. I think if you come up with an exercise, something like you're working out, zum, like that. That way you're able to trust yourself more coming out of that. But for me, it's the right combination of the motions hand to hand and the amount of buzz I can get out of each. Cool? So try from the fortissimo now. So jump, zum. Yeah, can you spend more time in the softer part of that roll and then give me a lot of drama at the very end? Good, and give me just one final thing. One final punch at the very end. So really hit the center. Yeah, exactly. So that way we have a definite end to that roll. And also, if you're playing in a band room or in an auditorium on a stage and the people listening to you are on the other side of the room, unless you really land on that accent, the roll might cover up that note. So make sure that pow, we hear a good end to that phrase. Cool? Now, for the soft stuff, this is another opportunity to really sell another side of your playing as well. try this, but just like the experiment I was doing with one of the middle schoolers before, try playing it in the dead center. Play all that off the right hand. Because it's a constant motion thing. Yes. Because once that right hand starts moving, it's a constant motion.
I was gonna.
Good. Now try the same thing, but at pianissimo. The last two notes want to be a little too open. Good. Now go from the bar before, pick it down. Again, watch here. With the metronome, you want to work out the last part of that. Good. Yep. Good. And then find that part. I would go. Yes. Yes. Good. Go from here. Make sure you're not putting a little space between the first and second bars. Figure one and come in a little early on that second note. 1, 2, ready, go. Better. So just be careful that second note. You almost want to make that part of the first beat. Good. Now let's go on to here. 1, 2, ready, go. So your tendency here with that rest is to be earlier you wake. Yeah, early, right? So one. You can feel that one. That's going to set you in place. 1, 2, ready, go. 1. Yeah, that's it. Good. Now we've been playing this in the dead center. We practiced it a lot, right? So let's go to the very edge. So 1, 2, 1, 2, there you go. Try that third bar chord. 1, 2, there you go. Good. Now add a fourth. 2, there you go. Good. Now, going from pianissimo to mezzo piano, that can be kind of tricky, right? Especially in audition, you're trying to play really soft, there's all kinds of pressure. What I would do is just change my note. So for my pianissimo, I'm going to be at the very edge. especially if you're talking about fine difference between the pianissimo and the mezzo piano, just moving in a little bit and not really changing anything in your height just gives you a little bit more sound. Cool? Any other questions about